Ha! Hello and welcome, Seekers. Today I want to start a new tarot series talking about each card from the Major to the Minor Arcana, the imagery in the cards, and what they might mean when they pop up in a reading. I want you to consider these videos an introduction to the cards, sort of a skeleton, a background. Each tarot card can have many meanings and backgrounds, and how one person interprets them can be wildly different from how another person interprets them, especially depending on the context of the reading or the question you're dealing with when you're doing a reading. Here, we're going to create a skeleton that you can build on as you start getting into tarot. I will also be basing these videos on the writer Waite Smith deck. I know there's lots of different kinds of decks, but really, at least to me, and I think to a lot of people, this is kind of the stereotypical deck when people think of tarot cards. Even though everyone says it, it's kind of true. It's a very easy deck to learn off of. A lot of the imagery is built on in different decks, so you can really use the meanings that you get from the RWS deck and transcribe it into other decks as you move along, or with whatever is your favorite. The words, it's fine. So it's easy to learn off of. That's the point. The meaning of the cards in the RWS deck are also used. I said that. I also personally tend to lean towards the Waite Smith deck if I'm doing readings for other people. Again, especially if they're new to it, or they kind of maybe expect that typical imagery that someone might look forward to maybe, or is imagining when they think of tarot. Just because I find it to be very useful and very straightforward. There's also a lot of resources related to the RWS deck, lots of books, lots of videos, lots of things online. So if you want to get more information, it's easy to do so with this particular deck. It's kind of the jumping off point of all the tarot decks. Okay, let's get started. When the Fool pops up in a reading, or when any card pops up in a reading, there are some keywords that come to mind. I like to think of some of these words as the general theme of the card. Sometimes these themes, don't necessarily always exactly match the meaning in a card reading, what you get from it, but knowing these keywords and themes adds a nice guideline when learning. Some of these keywords are new beginnings, rebirth, journeys and paths, adventure, fresh starts, possibilities, choices, beauty and truth, or the beauty that is in a truth, innocence, faith, and a clear conscience. Getting into the numerology of this card, the number assigned to this card is 0. And I say assigned with quotation marks because depending on how into math you are, 0 is, and in a way, is not a number. I'm not a mathematician, I apologize. But I think to most people, when you think of 0, if you start to count to 10, you don't start 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You start with 1. But we have 0. Some decks, the Fool is just unnumbered. There's no number assigned to it all. So what does that mean? In line with the rebirth theme, the Fool has a place anywhere in the deck. We can go through spiritual deaths and rebirths at any point in our lives. If anything, it can happen many, many, many times. The odds are we're all going to go through many deaths in a way, whether it's spiritual, metaphorical, you learn something new, whatever, throughout our lives. We go through them a lot. So the Fool can occur at any point in tarot as a time of rebirth, whether it's starting a new business, getting into a new relationship, having some new personal goals. Not to say that rebirth can happen after a dark course of life, because sometimes rebirths are necessary for growth. Even when things are going amazing, sometimes it's just time to start something new. Number 0 also suggests that this card is representing the before. So before entering the other archetypes, the other major arcana cards. So we're starting this journey, we're getting into it, but it's kind of the the before stage, before anything happens. We'll get into that more later, but there's a whole ton, just a whole ton of untapped potential that kind of stays with the Fool in this situation. All right, so let's talk about some other general associations. Nope, we're not going to touch it. Okay, we're not going to do that. You can assign elements to any of the cards. The element assigned, associated with, linked to, connected to, whatever. The element associated with the Fool is air. Air as an element represents. Traditionally, air as an element represents thoughts, creativity, imagination, desires. With the Fool, air as an element suggests that there are maybe also some external forces at play in a situation, and these forces, you know, I tend to look at more as like opportunities. So things that are outside that you're kind of looking at and going, oh, look at all this stuff for me to think about and decide on. It's so wonderful. The planet associated with the Fool is Uranus. Uranus, which is the planet of innovation, rebellion, and change. We could see how these things are connected pretty easily. This planet Uranus is big on breakthroughs and the need for change. The Fool embodies Uranus energy and calling on visionaries, wanting to, you know, growing towards enlightenment and having this novelty about yourself or about what you're starting. Fun piece about Uranus that I enjoy is that it's also associated with androgyny, which makes sense as the big Uranus energy is all about going against the conventional, against the orthodox, and leaning into something that's more something that is more liberating and true to oneself. Okay, now we're going to get into the imagery of the Fool. So you pick up this card, and what do you see? I see there's a carefree person that's walking towards the edge of a cliff. Their face is up to the sky, and they're so carefree. They just don't, nothing in the world could bother them right now. But they also have so much trust that they're not going to fall to their deaths, which is amazing. But they trust that they're not going to fall. The person's dressed in green, yellow, white, and red. In their hand, they're holding this white rose, but they're holding it very delicately, you know, almost like it's very important to them. So they're holding it in this specific way. And on their other hand, they're holding this staff, which is carrying what we can probably assume to be are their belongings, whatever they're carrying around with them, which isn't a lot. You know, there's a kind of vagabond nature about this card, of this kind of traveler going with whatever they have. There's also a small dog in this version. It's a tiny white dog, kind of not nipping at his heels, but he's happily, he looks happy. I don't know, he carries kind of the same energy, carries the same energy as the Fool as they're going along. The dog is barking and jumping at their side, kind of just behind them. They're not totally at their side, they're a little behind. And in the background, there's this great mountain ridge, right? There's this really big mountain ridge, a bright yellow sky, and the sun just beaming down. All right. So let's break this down. Here we see walks in this stride, right? That implies that they're not in a hurry. This person's taking their time, but they're also clearly not about to stop anytime soon. Let me put him there in my little hole. You know, this figure, while typically viewed as a man, doesn't really carry any clear gender traits. So it could be either, really sticking with that androgynous nature of Uranus that we talked about earlier. They're kind of innocent, maybe a little naive to the danger that they're in, but they're innocent that they're not pressured by whatever is going on around them, right? They have this innocence to the pressures of society that they might bump into along the way instead. They're also naive to this power that they hold, right? Because I'm already forgetting it's there. If you look at the staff is actually a wand, and you know, we have the suit of wands, which we'll talk about in another video, but in the Major Arcana, there's The wand pops up in a few cards, but it's usually depicted as a white wand. A lot of people, unfortunately, they hear black magic, white magic, or a black wand. We're leaning away, but typically black was seen as a color of like evil, something that's dark, malevolent, and white was good and pure. The wand being black in this case represents that untapped potential that's locked away for now. We talked about the bag, so whatever they're walking away from, they're not totally leaving it behind. And the bag, while small, is carrying what's important to them, something from their past, things from their past. They're carrying this old life with them. But it's not a heavy burden, right? It's not dragging them down. It's not keeping them from anywhere. It's not heavy. This fresh start is providing them with an opportunity to learn from the past without it dragging them down and without forgetting about it, because they still have the darn thing, right? They're not leaving it behind. They're bringing it with them. We talked a little bit about this rose, right? This white rose. And I did mention that white's usually associated with good. In this case, this white rose is representing, purity. There's also a small white dog. In some decks, the dog's replaced with a cat. Sometimes it's some sort of reptile or just some other animal. It's not always necessarily a dog, but it's usually an animal to represent nature, whether it's nature working with us or nature working against us. Dogs historically could be a source of happiness, but also a source of danger or a dark omen, especially black dogs, right? We also sometimes think of like hellhounds. So because the dog is mirroring the rose, the dog seems to represent an unhindered instinct, the intuition needed to move in the right direction and to trust your choices. The intuition needed to move in the right direction and to trust in your choices. Finally, the cliffs in the background are also connected with nature. It's the wilderness, it's the great expanse that's calling for adventure and is foreshadowing a journey beginning. The cliffs, if you notice, also start really, really low and then they get high. It's like they're growing, but like all growth, it's not linear. There's lots of ups and downs. There's lots of setbacks. There's lots of progress. It's not a straight line. If the fool is determined, they can make their way to the top. Over top of everything that we see is this bright yellow sky and this bright yellow sun. There's yellow depicted in the fool himself on their bag, on their clothes, on their boots. And yellow is just so happy. I don't wear enough yellow, I don't really wear yellow, but it's a nice color. So yellow is connected to our solar plexus and represents joy, the element air, personal power, visualization, and confidence. All of these are needed if you're conjuring up the fool, if you're going forward with these choices and on these journeys. You need to have this joy about what you're about to experience and the confidence to be able to trust yourself, the universe, or what have you. Now I want to talk a little bit about the name of the fool. Today when we think of a fool, we think of someone naive, someone who's foolish, maybe kind of dumb, someone who doesn't know what they're doing. But is that always a bad thing? Using our modern definition of a fool, we can easily describe a baby, someone new and has not learned yet through experience. Fools or jesters were once described as entertainers or as people who were able to speak a truth underneath this kind of veil of entertainment, of entertaining others and making people laugh. In this sense, a fool can be very wise, if they're funny, but there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from this state of being able to learn and experience. There are plenty of movies today that I can think of where the heroes or the hero are usually described as a fool or fools by the villain. So what really makes someone foolish? Oh, it's getting warm. I did that right into the microphone. Warm. It's getting very warm in here. So the fool can be so exciting to pull in a reading. If it's representing a person, this person is confident, this person is having faith in a situation that might be scary. things like starting a business, going back to school, changing their career, starting a new diet, switching to vegan, I don't know. So many possibilities that really depends on what you're reading for. And I'll be saying that a lot in these videos. Questions I think of when this card appears are, what is it? So, questions I think of. What is it that you want to achieve? What are you trying to start? How are you taking care of yourself relating to new hobbies or new projects? Another side of this card is that it is expressing freedom and individualism. It's a big creation card for like yourself. You can recreate yourself. It's my go-to like let's fucking go card, right? Because it's this intense like let's get started. We're gonna start something new, and that's just so exciting. Unless it's really scary. Like sometimes I get something new and I'm like, I'll stay in my comfort zone. But that's what this card is. It's telling you we're leaving the comfort zone now. The train's leaving. Let's go. There's a lot of passion and innovative energy that this card carries, right? It's not just let's go jump off a cliff because it's fun. It's all about being yourself, and I really love that. It encapsulates this potential that everyone has at any point in their lives to make a change in their life or to start over. And that's why I love that this is the first card. It's that entry point, like I said, but it's stage 0. It's a decision card to go with what is in front of you and start this journey and trust that the universe has got you, or to not trust and fall back and just stay stagnant. So for all these cards, I am also going to discuss the reversed reading of it, or kind of the antithesis to the card. I don't really read cards in reverse, but I do get reversed readings. What I mean by that is that I'm primarily an intuitive reader, and sometimes a card pops up upright and I get a reversed meaning from it, and sometimes it pops up reversed and I stick with the regular meaning. The tea and the mango brought up something in me. It's okay, we're all human. So you read how you read, and you read however works best for you is really all I'm saying here. But reverse, the Fool says that you're not following your instincts. What's up with that? But you're being naive in the negative way, not in the childhood wonder way. I think, how are your choices affecting others? Who else is involved in making this decision? Are you being reckless? Have the dream, but maybe don't spend your life savings on a whim to get started. You know, it's that kind of vibe of like me. All right. Had a bit of a technical difficulty there. I think it's working. Okay, so what was I saying? Right, so who else is involved? Are you being reckless? The flip side to the Fool is acting with abandonment. There are consequences to every action, whether they are good or bad, and sometimes it is better to just sit back, take a breath, and really think things out. On the other hand, I did mention, you know, this is kind of not following your instincts, and I still agree with that. If there's something you really want to do, and that little voice inside is like, hey, I'm not sure about that, maybe listen to it. You know, like, don't text them back. Don't blow off work to like go to the beach. Do start saving money and maybe racking up some PTO so you can go on a nice beach vacation instead. Start small and work your way up. This journey involves a lot of determination and trust that things will work out, even if not immediately. Okay, so that's it for the Fool. Be sure to check out my other videos about tarot. Next up in this series will be the Magician. Leave a comment below on your thoughts on the Fool, or with any other tarot witchcraft related questions or videos you'd like to see. Please remember to like and subscribe for more. Wander where you want, live how you'd like, and don't let your tea get cold.